Welcome to Automating Success Show. I'm your host, Joe Langton, and I am very excited to be interviewing Afshin Doose today with Advanced Intelligent Systems. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and kind of tell us briefly what you're all about and your main passion right now?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to a very engaging conversation with you. A little bit about me. I'm Afshin Doose. Right now, I'm the CEO of Advanced Intelligent Systems, a robotics company in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. My background was originally started with microbiology and then into various kinds of businesses. And I went into finance for a while. And I always had a passion to start a business. And I saw this pattern in my past where I keep starting various businesses and I enjoy that startup time within a business. So I started doing business consulting and I thought this is the way I can be exposed to a lot of different businesses and try to create as big an impact as I can. And then I came across a bunch of friends who wanted to start a robotic company that actually incorporated it, but they were looking for another person to come in and help on the business side. And I enjoyed the conversation and the vision so much, I said, I'm on board. So I stopped what I was doing. I joined in. And since then, it was in 2016 when I joined in. And since then, I've only been focused on technology. And I sit on a few different boards and I teach about technology, commercialization. And we're working on our own robotics company, which is really exciting day in, day out.
Awesome. So we share a few things, right as you introduced yourself. I too, love starting and scaling a business. I think it's one of the most exciting things to build and start to gain that momentum and assemble teams. So it's really interesting to hear that we share that same thought. And then the second thing that's interesting is you said you got into this company in 2016, and that's actually when I started the robotics at AOS.
Wow.
Is in 2016. So we have a couple of parallels there that are pretty amazing that I didn't even really realize we had until you just introduced yourself. So
interesting.
So one of the things that I like to do before we kind of get into where we are today as professionals is I like to learn more about the person sitting in front of me right now. I think it's an important part of our stories. And so tell me a little bit about your childhood and any values that you kind of were instilled by, your parents or mentors from a young age.
Yes, well, I love that question. I have two daughters myself, 14 and 16, and I always talk to them about my childhood and how I learned, how to learn. And I remember my father used to always tell me, Afshin, if you want something, come and talk to me, but think about it and then convince me that it should happen. So it started building a little bit of critical thinking in me. So you would question your own thoughts in order to be able to support it with evidence. And at the same time, he always taught us that what you find significant today might not be significant the next day. So you have to put things into perspective and look at the bigger picture. And he always empowered me and gave me confidence to do what I want to do. So that empowerment, having empathy, being able to question yourself and realizing that it's okay to make mistakes. We're all humans. We just got to learn from it and move on and look at the bigger picture and try to understand life from different perspectives. And so that's what I learned from my father. And I still talk to him and thank him once in a while, for having given me that critical thinking power and the value to have empathy and to look at other people's point of views, try to understand them and learn that we're all humans. So nobody's perfect.
So that was one of the most amazing beginning things, like opening statements about someone's childhood I've ever heard. Just because all the things he instilled in you as a kid, you know, to almost have that like 24-hour, now they call it 24-hour cool off period, right? But the way you said it was so much more eloquent in just realizing that, you know, what seems big right now might not seem that big of a deal tomorrow. So before we get all upset and talk about it, let's wait. You know, this is how I'm kind of taking it in. I think that is just absolutely great advice. And I can already tell how good of a show this is going to be. I mean, sometimes people question, you know, why would you do this podcast and kind of share the things, you know, you're doing. And I always try to explain to people, this podcast for me is just a way to continuously learn. You know, every day on a Friday afternoon, I'm going to talk to somebody like you, and I'm going to learn things like you just said. So I appreciate you for sharing that. That was awesome.
You're very kind and modest. Thank you for that. And about the learning comment, if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see the first line I have in my LinkedIn is, I'm still learning. And that's Michelangelo at age 87 saying that. So I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah, I always say, and I tell my 20-year-old daughter that, you know, and I actually, my friend has a foreign exchange student in town from Italy right now. And one of the things that I had said to him was, you know, it's always funny as I look in the mirror at myself. I obviously see that I'm aging, but my mind, I feel like, is as hungry as the mind I had when I was in high school and I was trying to learn how to play football and do that the best that I could. And I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough, or maybe it's what makes all of us unique. Is sometimes I look at some of my middle-aged friends and they're just very content. They have their job and all they're thinking about is what they're going to do when they retire. And I'm over here thinking I maybe will be starting another business when I'm 70 years old. Because to me, it's just a constant evolution, you know? So, but anyway, so what, you know, have you always been interested in robotics? So, you know, tell me kind of like, obviously we just talked about your childhood, but, you know, I think in some of my research, you weren't always into robotics. So kind of tell me where you got, like what you did and how you stepped up to where you're at.
Well, I was always interested in technology, but not robotics in particular. I sat on a few different boards, technology companies, and I got exposed to technology. And through my years of experience in starting different kinds of businesses, I learned a little bit about corporate governance. And when I came across my two friends with whom we started this company, Robert and Farhang, I looked at what they were doing, and it really piqued my interest. And the technology itself is amazing, but besides the technology, why are you doing things the way you're doing them? It's more interesting for me. So you could be looking at the biggest piece of technology, but developing it for the wrong reasons. But you would be doing something for the right reasons. And that's what really piqued my interest in robotics and the technology we are developing.
Okay. So your education, you studied microbiology, legal studies, you got your MBA, PhD in entrepreneurship. So tell us about all of your studies, you know, kind of put that all into point A to where you are now, you know, what kind of caused that evolution for you?
I always studied what interested me. I didn't want to study in order to get a job from my education. So when I was studying microbiology, I actually got a job working in a lab and sampling the sewage from factories going into the Greater Vancouver Regional District sewage. And I soon realized that, you know, microbiology work isn't something that really interests me, but I love dealing with electrophoresis, with agarose gel, with DNA splicing and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed it, but it wasn't to get a job. So every time I started studying something new was because I truly enjoyed the subject matter. And that's why I didn't pick one subject and go all the way to the end. I kept jumping ship and studying new things.
So I think that that leads me to an interesting thought, because I feel like in the industry that I'm in, I get a lot of people that went to college. I mean, I've had people that go to college for physics, but then come and try to get a job in the landscaping industry. Yeah. And it's because they went to college, and they went to college thinking that was going to be a high paying job, but then they started that job and either hated it, like they're like, oh my gosh, I just went to school and I just don't like it, or got out of school and realized it was hard to find a job in that industry. But one of the things that I do tell people all the time is, follow your heart. Whether it's, for me, people ask like what business they should start. And I always say, start a business that you're going to be passionate about. Because if you're passionate about what you do, you don't feel like you're ever working, and it sounds like that's what's fueled you to go to school, is whatever you're passionate about. It's what you want to learn about, and then grow it. Right.
Exactly.
So we've talked about your education, what you do now, but we've all had a first job. So, what was your first job? Was it an internship, or was it truly just a job, to support you? So,
I started a landscaping company. That was my first job.
No kidding.
And,
awesome. Okay.
And it started with, just mowing lawns, right? But then it developed, and it went big. And we failed at the end. And that was wonderful, because failing, I believe, is more important than continually winning. Because it's through your failures that you learn and you recalibrate and you experience the ups and downs of life, right? And that's what builds character. So that was my first job. And I've done a lot of different things. Sometimes I talk to my friends and I say, wow, remember when we were working at the casino? Remember when we went to States and worked on a cruise ship? Or, we were working as a courier, and, a lot of different jobs when I was growing up. But what was really motivating for me was at the same time trying to start my own businesses. So I started a bunch of different businesses, and in different areas, industries. And I enjoyed those experiences a whole lot more than just working for someone.
Mm-hmm. So if you don't mind, if we could dig in a little bit. So you said you started a landscape business and it failed. Obviously, we all learned from our failure. So looking back, what was the cause of the failure?
We took more than we could chew. In that business, I learned you should focus on scaling properly. The fact that you bring in more business, if you can't really service it properly, is detriment to your business. So every part of the business has to grow equally together in order to be scalable. You can't press on one button and hope for everything to go good.
Yeah. So I want to expand on that, and then I want to see, because obviously you have a lot of business experience. So I want to see if you agree with my thought process on this. So it's one of the things that got me so interested in robotic mowing was that what I found was there's this like perpetual cycle in our industry where it's easy to get into the business because you have hardly any overhead costs. So you get in, you've got a couple of guys in a truck, or you with somebody else in the truck. And then and usually that's a truck that you drive every day anyways. So your thoughts are, how much money am I going to pay somebody to do it with me? And then things start to grow. And then you have you truly start to have labor burden. Okay. Yeah. But a lot of people that get in, you don't recognize those burdens sometimes until it's too late. And then you start to talk to a bank, and the bank solution is, well, we'll loan you money on revenue. If you have revenue, we can loan money. You show us those contracts, we'll loan you money. So then the thing is, okay, I'm going to just drive revenue because I'll be able to get the money from the bank, and then in turn I'll become profitable. And then you get more employees, and and now you have employees that have been with you for 5 or 6 years. And then those employees want health insurance because otherwise they're going to go somewhere else. And before you know it, you feel like you're just patching holes on a ship. You're just trying to stay afloat. Is that how you kind of felt? Am I right in what's happening in our country?
Yeah, yes, you're right. But you have painted a much more sophisticated picture than what we experienced. Because our landscaping business just lasted less than a year, and and the reason was we focused primarily on a lot of summer jobs, and we didn't expand it into other things.
Okay.
And at one point, we started looking at getting contracts from our customers, because, for example, we had a customer and we were doing some work for them, and they wanted to add a swimming pool. So we would get that contract and we would subcontract it to others, and we'd manage the project. And so we started doing that, and then we screwed up. Very simply, we didn't have the experience, and we started getting more contracts than we could properly manage, and we screwed up on it. So at the end of the day, we realized, we're not doing a good job, and we're actually creating liabilities rather than, helping. So we shut it down, and we said, this is not the way we want to do business, and it's not going well for us. So that's what it was. It became really overwhelming. But so it kind of aligns with what you explained, but yours was a little bit more sophisticated than what happened to us.
Well, I didn't realize it was only a year. So what are some of you said you started several businesses. So what are some of the other businesses that you?
I'm going to fast forward to a little bit more sophisticated businesses that I started. I was working for HSBC Finance, and I was a regional sales and relationship manager for British Columbia for HSBC Finance. I learned a thing or two about subprime and lending. Okay. So we started a mortgage brokerage firm, and the mortgage brokerage firm did really well. And so we had a lot of leads that wanted to get into real estate too. So we started a real estate company. From there, we started a trade brokerage firm out of Guangzhou, China. And then I founded a private debt fund. And right now it's being managed by a chartered accounting firm. And so these are the last 4 or 5 businesses that we started. And most of them are still operational. They're still working, and they're being managed by professionals. And I've moved on completely from them. And I'm still a stakeholder in some of them, but spending full time in our robotics company right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very impressive, by the way. I mean, that's kind of the dream, right? To be able to start a company, scale it, either get it taken over or managed by someone else, be a shareholder, and then move on. Because I think it's important to know there's, and I think you and I were aligned yet again. I have my brother in one aspect who loves what we're doing at Langton Group, which is my landscaping and snow removal company. And when I want to have all these ventures and start all these things and go national in robotics, he's content. He's perfectly happy to be the VP and CFO of Langton until we decide to retire. Whereas for me, I almost find myself, I have to watch my words when I say this, but I almost become bored. Like once I figured out how to do it, and now it's at that point where it's just making money and it's doing its thing. I find myself like I need to find something else. I have to solve another problem.
Yes, I think you need to be stimulated all the time, mentally, in order to stay motivated and engaged in what you do.
Yes.
And I suffer from the same disease. So
it is a disease. Right? I mean, it's weird. It's like it's a disease, but it's also what makes me successful. Like I'm the type of person where so many people are like looking forward to the weekend. Yeah. And sometimes I find myself getting anxious about the weekend because everybody else wants to just sit and relax. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do now? Like, and then I'm like sitting there being like, looking forward to just working. And then I'll find myself just coming to my office. So it's like a blessing and a curse all at the same time, I think,
I agree. I concur.
Well, I'm happy we found each other. Now I feel better. I'm not just one person out in the woods here.